of life, that man's life, right? And so it's just the nature of the dunya is like that. So recognizing no harm and no benefit except from Allah. And then also that likewise if the whole creation wanted to harm you, they couldn't, unless Allah willed it. And then if someone believes that with certainty, riyā doesn't occur to him. Because the reason people do riyā is to get some worldly benefit. You want a worldly benefit. So in the traditional Muslim world, because religious people were so honored, there was a type of showing off in order for them to get a position amongst people, right? And still, I mean, that's still a danger because the Muslims still do respect religious behavior. So people will do those things. Now, he says, I mean by that showing off in good works, one of the calamities of the heart, whose definition is to do an action of devotion for other than the Creator's sake. Indeed, it was really done seeking some worldly benefit or praise from the creation, or to protect oneself from the opposite, meaning harm. In other words, some people will do it simply to get praise, because they enjoy hearing how wonderful they are, and these type things. So that's why they do it. Then he goes on to give its various types. أعظمه ما كان وصرة إلى ذنب كمبدي ورع ليجعل بيده مال يتيم ثم ما لدنيوي أمتطاه سلما. So he says the worst is that which is done as a way displaying virtue in order to be entrusted with the wealth of an orphan. That's really bad. In other words, you use the deen for some to be put into an entrustment in which, like an orphan's wealth, where you'll misuse it. And this is religious hypocrisy done to actually cheat in the religion itself. And it was amazing. I met this Moroccan man who was talking about people that did dhikr for money in Morocco, which there's actually a lot of people that do that. Because in Morocco, they have singers that sing praise of the Prophet ﷺ, and they pay them to come to weddings and things like that. And he told me because he does that. He's a beautiful singer, but he won't do it for money. And he told me, he said, Allah has made myriad ways to get your provision in this dunya. And he said, so don't do it in a way that is designed to draw near to Allah. In other words, Allah gave you all these different ways to make your money. My father told me in the early 60s he realized that you can make money anyway because he once sent in $1 for this barbecue starter kit. And he got back a match and a small piece of flint. So people, you can make money a lot of ways, especially in America, right? In all these 1-900 numbers and things like that. Psychic, those psychic things. And all they do, right, they call them up. I've never done this, thank God. But people call them up and they say, you're looking for a better job, right? Everybody's looking for a better job. Wow, yeah, I am, right? You're looking for a better relationship. Right? I mean, it's all just these things that poor American people are all obsessed with. And then also they know that he wouldn't be calling them if his life was working out. Right? So they know they can play on that. I mean, there's all these things that they know to do. So the next thing he says is a worldly thing. So the worst thing is an otherworldly thing, an entrustment, like an endowment that was done for religious endowment, and then you use it for dunya, like a waqf, right? Or money that was collected for the sake of Allah, and then the people use it for a dunyawi thing. That's the worst type of riyā. The worst type of riyā, to display religiosity and make people think that you're trustworthy so that they put you in, like on the masjid board, and they make you the treasurer, and then embezzle the funds. I mean, it's... Go out and rob, don't rob, but, you know, do something else. You know, it's horrible. You read about, like, people that trick, you know, old people, like these people that go, and it's unbelievable what human beings will do. You know, because there's even degrees of despicable behavior. You know, not all behavior has the same level of despicability, right? Or despicableness, or whatever the word is. And then he says, and finally, the least of it is what is done out of fear of others' scornful gaze. Right? In other words, you do it, that's the least of the riya. You do it just because you don't want people to say, you know, he's a bad person or something. So he says, it is cured by knowing that had all creation joined forces to oppose you or support you, they would not be able to without His permission, Allah. Indeed, He alone possesses rewards for your actions in your two abodes. In other words, in dunya and akhirah, it's Allah alone. It's also cured by maintaining awareness of its harm, which results in detesting it and thus causes it to pass. That is its intellectual treatment. Its practical treatment is accomplished through veiling one's actions from the eyes of others and by reciting Surah Al-Ikhlas often and say that istighfar. So this is a really important treatment here for everybody, because this disease is a serious disease and we all want to be free of it. And so the first one is doing things, veiling your actions. This does not mean that you should not do actions in front of people, but it means that you should also, out of fear of riya, if you're able to do it when people aren't there, it's better to do it that way. So if you're going to donate money, it's better not to do it in front of people. Although, the ulama say if your intention is to encourage other people, it's a good thing. So it has to be weighed in. You have to look into your heart, what you want. If you want to show off that you're the one giving the $10,000 donation or $5,000 donation, then you do it secretly. But if you really don't feel that, you know, you want to encourage others, something like that, then it's permissible. So you have to watch your own heart and guard it. And this is a very subtle matter. So avoiding doing things, night prayers, right? Doing night prayers where people aren't going to see you, where people aren't going to reciting the Quran, doing dhikr, things like that. And even though the ulama do say that for scholars it's better to do these things also where people see them, to encourage them and to give them that. It's also a danger for people of knowledge, because they are as susceptible or often more susceptible to this disease than other people, right? Because of the nature of their position and things like that. Now the other thing is Surah Al-Ikhlas. Ikhlas, if you look at the actual meaning of the word, Ikhlas comes from a word khalusa, which means to be pure. And it relates to honey, pure honey, leban khalis, pure milk. Leban khalis is leban that has no, nothing's come into it. It's pure, right out of the udder. So it hasn't been contaminated by anything. And that's what the deen al-khalis to Allah is, that which is not contaminated with riya. That you worship Allah and there's no contamination of riya, of hidden shirk, of doing it for other than Allah's sake. And the mukhliseen are the people that do that. Now if you look in the Quran, there's two words that are used. Mukhlas and mukhlis. You can find them both in the Quran. The mukhlis is the active participle, and the mukhlas is the passive, which indicates there has to be a tawfiq from Allah. It's not enough for you to be sincere from yourself. There has to be a tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. And that's the secret of success, is that Allah gives this tawfiq. And that's why Abu Hassan al-Shadri said, Allahumma ij'al sayyati sayyat al-mahbub ladayk, wa la taj'al hasanati hasanat al-mabghudi ladayk. Make my bad actions the bad actions of those you love, and don't make my good actions the good actions of those you hate. Right? In other words, you have to have tawfiq from Allah. And Allah promises tawfiq if you do certain things. So it goes together. And this is why if you're a mukhlis, but you're a mubtadi', you're not mukhlas. If you're sincere in your actions, like a Christian can be absolutely sincere. They can have ikhlas. Don't think they can't. You can have a sincere Christian. Really. You can have a sincere Buddhist. You can have a sincere Jew. You can have a sincere person in any tradition. But he's not mukhlas. Why? Because his action is not in accordance with what Allah wants. Did you understand the difference? So the mukhlis, who's also mukhlas, is when his action is sincere solely for the sake of Allah, and with that, he's doing what Allah loves him to be doing, not what Allah hates him to be doing. Alright? So that's really important to recognize that difference. So Allah has commanded us to do things and given us a sharia. We have to follow and be in accordance with the sharia. If we're not, we don't get tawfiq. There's no tawfiq. It doesn't matter how sincere you are. Right? And I know Christians have a hard time with this. Right? Because the Christian focus is to say, the law is not really important. The important thing is the spirit of the law. No, we say both are important. One, and that's where you get the tawfiq. The tawfiq is following the law and the spirit of the law. Because you can be following the law. You're doing exactly what Allah tells you to do, but it's not for the sake of Allah. So there's riya, ghair muwaffaq. So you're not sincere, you're not mukhlis, even though the action is in accordance with what Allah has commanded you to do. So outwardly you're praying, like Allah told you 5 times a day. You're paying your zakat, like Allah told you. You go on your hajj. You do all those things, outwardly, everything looks good. But you're doing it for other than Allah. No tawfiq. And on the other hand, you can have inside, you're doing it sincerely and for God, right? I'm doing it for God. Charity. You do it hidden. A Christian knows about it. They have these things too. They know about this, not being sincere and things like that. It's in their tradition. So there's a Christian, he's doing it, but he's not doing it in accordance with what Allah says. So you have to be with the spirit of the law, but also the letter of the law. So our deen is the middle way. The Jewish way is a focus on the law, forget the spirit of the law. The Christian way is focus on spirit of the law, forget the law. So they're both wrong. One's maghdub alayhim and the other's dallin. Mukhlas is a passive. And mukhlis is an active. In other words, in the mukhlas, it's Allah who's making you that way. And the mukhlis, it's coming from you. So doing Surah Al-Ikhlas, the word Ikhlas comes from akhlastu or akhlasa, which means literally to make pure. So the surah is the surah that makes you pure. The surah literally is the surah that makes you pure. Ikhlas will purify you, the surah itself. And that's why, and I put in the note there, that Murabt al-Hajj, Hafizullah, most people that come to him with diseases of the heart, he tells them Ikhlas. to do a lot of ikhlas, Surah Al-Ikhlas, including waswasa, like obsessive compulsive thought. So don't underestimate this. He's giving you a real cure here. Ikhlas is an important surah. You should say it minimum 3 times in the morning, 3 times in the evening. That's the least amount that you should say it every day. Morning 3 times, evening 3 times. It equals 1/3 of the Quran. Right? So it's a great surah. I mean, they're all great, but it has a special maqam. What's that? Yeah. He says, بعلم أن الخلق لو تضافر عليك أو لك أخي ما قدر إلا بإذنه وعنده أجور داريك وهو القادر البر الشكور بشعوره ضره فيكسب ذلك بغضه وذا أن يذهب دواءه العلمي والستر العملي عن أعين الناس الدواء العملي وسورة الإخلاص في الإكثار منها ومن سيد الاستغفار. So that's the second practice to get rid of this, is to do Sayyid al-Istighfar. And Sayyid al-Istighfar is there at the bottom. It comes from a hadith that's related on the authority of Burayda radiallahu anhu. It's in Imam Ahmad, Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah, Ibn Hibban, and Al-Hakim. So obviously it's an important hadith. It's mentioned in a lot of them. And if you do this a lot, it will also purify you from Riya. And the hadith, the Prophet said, whoever, if he rises, if he says this, and in the evening, then if he dies in that day or in that evening, he'll enter Jannah. So that's a big dua. You should do it every day, 3 times a day in the morning, 3 times a day in the evening. But preferably, I would do it also after the prayers. When you finish your prayers, it's a good dua to do, any of these times, even in sajda. And it goes, Allahumma anta rabbi, Allahumma anta rabbi. Oh Allah, you are my Lord. If you want me to write the phonetic, do some people want the phonetics? Alright. Allahumma anta rabbi la ilaha illa anta kharaqtani. وأنا عبدك وأنا على عهدك ووعدك ما استطعت أعوذ بك من شر ما صنعت أبوء لك بنعمتك علي وأبوء بذنبي فاغفر لي فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت. خلاص. This is really a cure. I guarantee you. Try it on yourself. He's not making this stuff up. This is a science. Do what he's telling you to do, and you'll get it. Say in every day, say that dua. Every evening, say that dua. Do Surah Al-Ikhlas. Right? Really do it with the intention of ikhlas. Ya Allah, akhlasni liwajhika al-kareem. Do it. Say it to Allah alone in the night. Get up. Ya Allah. Allah can do that. And if you do it with sincerity, He'll do it. But, if it's all just like, okay, and what's next? What's the next disease? I mean, this is serious stuff. This is our lives, this is serious stuff. This is not, this is our life. I take this stuff really seriously because it scares me. I read this stuff. I read Imam al-Ghazali's Signs of Insincere Preachers and Sincere Preachers, and I'll tell you, I saw more stuff on the insincere side. And it really frightened me. You read this stuff, this is the danger of this science. You start reading it, and you start seeing yourself in it, and it's unnerving, because we're going to be taken into account for all this. Right? This is what life is about, and either we get the point or we don't. But the point is, we've been given a huda. This is guidance, and we're being told. Now another thing, which is a really important dua to do, right? And he doesn't mention it in here, but Sidi Ahmed Zarruq mentions it in the Nasiha. And it's a great dua. It's from our Prophet ﷺ, so it has to be great. But